Hey, welcome everybody. I'm kidRiot, and this is Attack on Auraxis. We couldn't do anything last week. I had to work, but actually this week I'm glad that we're here and that we have time to talk about it because there was an amazing match, and I'm sure we'll be going over that a lot. But before we really get into it, I want to introduce my guests. I'm here with the ever ubiquitous Scourge of the Server
Hello.
and AC Dis, who you guys are all familiar with if you've been watching Farmers,
Oh, hi.
and Dopey, who actually I didn't know this, but Dis told me that Dopey you created the Farmers website.
That is correct. Hey guys.
Yeah, so before we kick off into it, we want to talk about, I guess, something important. This is what marks the halfway point, I think, of the Invitational. And there was actually something really major that happened, and that was the roster changes. I think each team was allowed to change up to 6 people, and in this case, on the right side you see Recursion that they actually ended up changing most of their six. I think all six, right, and half of them are actually in this match. Like with your teams, and did it really affect you guys? Like, what do you guys think about coming into this and having roster changes? Like, did you want certain people in, or were you comfortable? Like, how do you judge who stays and who doesn't?
Well, I mean, for us, we only made two changes, and it was really based on a couple of people that just did not have the time to put into it that they thought they would. For the most part, what you're generally going to see from our top six has remained intact. We did one of the people we were able to add, though, Half-Saf, who you guys will see in this match. Great sniper. He joined AC, I want to say, I don't know, about 3 weeks or so before the whole Farmers thing started, and just quickly worked his way up our lineup. We saw how good of a sniper he was.
Do a lot of your? It seems like a lot of your AC guys have a lot of experience in other shooters. Did he come from another game, or did he just start PS2? How did that work out?
Yeah, he was a competitive Battlefield 3 player. He used to run with Rival.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, we kind of have the same story with 404, who was a applicant and a trial eventually. Still a trial now.
Yeah, and I'm actually.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, just seeing how much potential he had as a player, and yeah, that was the thing. Is actually at the time that we put him on the roster, we weren't even like totally entirely comfortable with him, but just we could see his potential, and he was very diligent about making all the practices and improving himself as a player. And yeah, now he's one of our most solid members of our 12.
It was kind of the same with us for Half-Saf, also known as Troya. He kind of jumped in some scrims with us to fill in for people, and we instantly noticed what a pain in the ass he was with that ghost. And one of the reasons we added him to the roster, we typically had either Maxi or Kylan taking over the infill role, which they were both good at that, but they are much more effective as heavies. And so adding Troy to the team and freeing up Maxi to go do his heavy thing has been huge for us.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go back to what you said. You said that Half-Saf was from Rival, and I remember one of the Rival guys, I think Cartel on Twitter, had said how I think he was looking at Farmers and said how really interesting it seemed to him. Like, do you think there's potential maybe for the future for like maybe other orgs or teams to potentially participate specifically in Planet Set 2 for Farmers? Like, do you think there's like chance for that, or what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I don't see why not. I'd say to this point, the first season has gone well.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'm sorry, go ahead, Scourge.
The barrier of entry of farmers, I think, is lower than the traditional competitions have been so far. Like, this was an issue during, like, community clash, where you saw just lots of shenanigans going on with teams, like, just trying to scoop each other up and merge to in order to feel this solid before. And I mean, this was the worst, even when people were still talking about Nexus, and getting a whole 48 people was just ridiculous. And but yeah, I mean, farmers is just like, you can get 6 guys, just go. And in most competitive games are already, you got like teams of 5 or whatever for your standard MOBA.
Yeah, and I think
So it's not much a stretch.
yeah, I think like you said, the barrier to entry is pretty. I mean, if you're good at other games, you're going to be really good at this. But I know Dopey, since you've done the website, you look at more data and stuff than I guess most people. What do you think about like money? Like, do you think money is necessary for this to actually, gain some traction, or do you think it's good as it is, or what do you think about that? As
I
far
mean,
as money, I mean like prize
never
pools.
hurts, I guess. I mean, but
Right.
if we can do this without sponsorship or any kind of funding at all, I don't really think money's much of an issue at that point.
But as he said, money doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a sponsor, what's that going to hurt?
I'm gonna get on the horn with balls later today.
Yeah, I mean that was certainly a big part of the just intensity during SOE Live. And, unfortunately, SOE Live, kind of had some issues and all, but there was definitely a level of intensity that was hard to match just because of there being a prize pool.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, this tournament is, the people are having fun. They're enjoying it, like legitimately, right? So,
Well, I think that's the point, though.
Well,
We're all
people are
here to
having
have a good time.
fun. People are having fun, and all of these outfits participating have a lot of pride too.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those things too where I was kind of dubious, but then when Tav was explaining it, and for those of you guys who don't know, Tav essentially, I guess, ran with this and created it and organized it. I know that's a huge, pain in the butt, but his idea was that it's competition for competition's sake, and I think that's about as pure as it gets.
Absolutely.
yeah, that was is. I mean, basically everybody has agreed that that's been the biggest issue with most of the tournaments that have tried to run something before is that they're always talking about the stream experience and future and expansion and all this other stuff they get caught up in, and it's like, honestly what matters at the end of the day is that people want to show up and they want to play, and that they feel like they're getting something from it.
No, I mean we are. What I think we're 3 or 4 weeks away from the playoffs, and especially when it comes to matches like this, and we're watching AC versus Recursion. Like, how do you think like the strats have changed from the start? In your guys' opinion, I mean, has it evolved at all? Is it pretty much the same thing? Is it just more teamwork? Is it timings? Like what's going on that's gonna, in your opinion, gonna really separate the best team from like maybe the average teams in this?
Well, I would say at this point, I think teams are really starting to figure their rosters out. The first 4 weeks, I think you've seen teams throw out different players, having people play different roles, and trying to figure out just what is the best mix of people we have.
Well,
I think that's
what does
one of
that
the
mean?
biggest things to this point.
What does that
You're
mean?
also
Well,
seeing kind of a meta developing, I think.
I mean, you have a 12-man roster, so you have 12 people to choose from.
No, I know, but I'm saying like if you're saying okay, this is the team that we're gonna throw at. This is like our A team. Like, what does it take to be on the A team, or what are you looking at in your teammates? Like, what kind of skill set or like intelligence, communication? What are you looking at?
All of the above. I mean, I can't speak for Future Crew or anyone else. I know from AC, we do a lot of internal scrims and just kind of evaluate how people do in those. Obviously, look at live.
Yeah.
You don't want to look at live server stats too much because it's live server.
There's also a sense of like you kind of start to get a sense for what players fill what sort of roles, and the interesting thing is even like two different heavy assault players are not the same. Like they both play it in different ways, and they complement the team in different ways, and that is the most clear metric. Obviously, is like what did they score, but then there's also what are they letting the enemy score? How well are they holding down points? How are they getting those key grenades? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and I think you said something really interesting about the meta. Do you think that's map dependent, or like how does that work for you guys when you go into a map and you say this is the class composition we want? Do you think about classes, or do you think more about roles? Like, how does that work?
For us, it's more. It's really more map dependent. I mean, for example, as you can see here at Fall Bridge, we ran one infill 5 heavies. We decided a light assault was just not something we wanted to use, even though in some of the other matches you saw Vonic and Rain just going crazy up there.
Don't forget
We
about
just-
Murda.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, Murda,
Vonic,
120
Rain,
points
and
was
Murder.
it?
Yeah,
But we decided we wanted to push the fight inside the building and right around the edges, and Recursion didn't pull any light assaults either, so it just had they pulled a light assault, we might have adjusted and pulled one. But you also kind of have to read and react to how the other team is playing as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of developing as the standard format now, is the 1 infil 5 heavy start, and then you see teams having like having a light assault is an alternate. Like you even saw like Vonic was playing heavy assault every once in a while, and that's like, that sounds crazy to if you'd said that like a month ago. But
I'm sure he felt dirty.
yeah, I'm sure he just didn't feel right like that. But yeah,
Sometimes it's necessary, though.
Right, it's just the situation calls for it. I mean, just to have that pushing force on the inside, not necessarily always on the outside. But yeah, and I think at the start of Farmers League, you saw a lot more teams experimenting with stuff like trying to have multiple light assaults or trying to use maxes every once in a while. And I think max use has gone down a lot. Like just as teams have realized just how accurate people are with the rockets and just seeing it on radar and preparing for it.
Yeah, it's like it's in death, man. It's like knowing that when you put the code in the slot machine, you're gonna win big. But
we started off our first match. We ran a medic the entire match, and that is something we've kind of gone away from because when you're dealing with players of this caliber and this aim, you don't want to try to 1v1 a really good heavy with a medic. Not to mention, we also saw situations where we got off reses that we thought were safe and they weren't, and that's just giving the other team 2 points.
Yeah, I noticed you said that, and then this is kind of like a segue. We're talking about roles and classes, and here we're looking at like this really really good position on top of the roof. I know like Murder used it, Vonic used it, Rain used it, and in this case they had I believe Ethereum as a heavy, and we were talking about how like one guy, even if you don't get the kill, can create so much pressure that it kind of forces the other team to move around. And I think in the TXR match you saw that a lot, where Rain was just really really. I mean, TXR was doing okay, and then he basically just shattered them. Like, do you think that like how important is that? Like when you talk about one guy and he's just basically just causing havoc. Like, is that like invaluable to you guys, or how do you see that kind of that role in the game?
Well, I mean, on this map we saw the impact of that. You saw Rain. I mean, you saw Murder against 56 RD. They got to a point where they were sending 2-3 people up there to get rid of them. When you have one person causing your whole team to look up and stop and hesitate and think, all right, where is this guy? Yeah, I mean, that's huge. It completely throws them off their game.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things you see over and over again during Farmers League is just one team basically wins because they throw too many things at the other team, and they can't cope with all of it. And just having somebody up on the roof is like the ultimate, just like everybody has to stop what they're doing, and suddenly just like you even see it when the late assault's not getting kills. Like I remember seeing that a couple times when Vonic was up on the roof. Sometimes Vonic would not be killing anybody, you'd just be taking pot shots. But just the fact that he was up there, every time somebody would walk in a door, they'd be like looking up and then looking in the door, and just suddenly they have all these other things they have got to deal with.
Yeah, and that's exactly I think what's happening too. Is like he's making the guys that he's hitting have to make a decision, right? I mean, if you go in even with like a couple of 100 hit points off your shield, you know that you're like much closer to death. Or do you wait and even take longer to get to your point? So I think it's like you said, like the meta. I think it's really deep in it, and it kind of surprises me. I didn't realize that the meta in PS2, as far as like a 6v6, would be that deep. And I honestly feel that we haven't seen everything yet. It'll get a lot more intense as we get closer to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, we saw. I know we're gonna discuss it later, but the Dread TXR match, which, as I said earlier, was my favorite match so far because that had the most on the line. This Recursion AC was great, but more or less, those are just two teams jockeying for playoff position. TXR Dread were fighting for their lives, and they both played like it. I mean, they threw everything they had at each other.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a really interesting match to watch, even though they kind of wasn't quite in the spotlight like the AC and OO was. Obviously everyone talked about that just because the level of play was, it's so high and so intense. But you saw a lot of like really interesting stylistic things happen, I think, during that match, and it was obviously a match with consequences, being pointed out.
If you guys, and actually, I like what you were saying about style, and so I was thinking, like, if you were to describe how a 6v6 works to somebody that doesn't play PlanetSide 2, and we're talking about like the style, how it flows, the role, the role in the compositions, like, how would you explain it to somebody that's never even played PlanetSide, but like is familiar with like a Counter Strike or a Call of Duty? Like, how would you guys explain it to them? Do you want to try first, Dopey?
I was gonna say probably more along the lines of Counter Strike, but I think it has the point flip aspect, kind of like Battlefield. So it's not like you're gonna go plant a bomb or anything like that. But I really like that PlanetSide offers a lot more diversity in play. I mean, you're not going to have everybody with AKs running at CTs, and they all have M4s at that point. You have to deal with maxes potentially, people with jetpacks. So I'm not really sure you can really compare it necessarily to Counter-Strike or Battlefield, and I think that's probably one of the best things about PlanetSide. Like it's similar because it's a first-person shooter, but there's so many different things that you don't even have to think about in Counter-Strike or Battlefield that can happen in PlanetSide.
I think it's actually very similar to Counter Strike in the sense of it's very positional, especially Farmers Lake. Just the way that the maps are set up, the way that the infantry combat works out. It's like it is just like if you get like a high ground advantage and you kind of have the head glitching thing going on, you're just like you have such a commanding position. But at the same time, it's there's a lot more spontaneous stuff and a lot more like the teams just having to like throw together a strat immediately, and less. I think there's a lot less before the match that happens, a lot more that happens during the match, which is which I think I like.
I would just add that it's similar to both Counter-Strike and competitive Battlefield, and that it's not just about shooting.
Yes.
If you just try to go in and just shoot your way through a match where going up against a team that is much more prepared than you, you're going to lose.
Yeah, and I think like when you talk about too, like you talk about it's not just shooting because what the accuracies between these teams, I mean, even the headshot ratios, you're talking about like 2, maybe 3%, which is nothing, right? So I think a lot of it.
Don't let Vissy hear you say that.
Do you guys actually have numbers for that? As far as I don't even know what kind of API can be pulled from Jaeger.
I've seen some. I
think
it
would
was
be
from
willing to
week
guess
2.
that both accuracies and headshot ratings for Jaeger players compared to their live server stats are going to be significantly lower, just because of the level of competition. I could be wrong though.
No, I think I would agree with you too. Because on live you have. Oh, go
ahead. I do think that there is a bit of an advantage some of the teams have, and some of their like, more specialist players, like especially when you're talking about snipers. Like we saw that especially during the DA TIW match, where Ye just like was totally just going ham with the parallax, whereas the sniper on the other, I think was Brodo for most of the match, was just not able to match that level of sniping. So I think when you're talking,
sorry, go ahead.
When you're talking like your kind of more specialist players, like your light assaults and your your snipers and so forth, that it does actually kind of does come up. Like some teams just have those stars, some don't.
And that's one thing we've seen in the farmers is that having a good infill is one of the most important things, not just for the sniping ability, but winning the sensor war, making sure you have a sensor up and keeping theirs down with EMP nades. And that was another thing that just dominated. It seemed like DA always had a sensor up and TIW never had theirs up.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. Like honestly, like TIW and TXR are kind of like the same team to me. Like they have so much potential, but it just seems like they never get it like 100% right. I mean, TIW obviously I think a bit more than TXR, but it just seems like the pieces never fall together for them for some reason.
Well, TIW, the roster we saw TIW throw up against DA, I think that's more of their kind of their ideal team. For whatever reason, Kabai and Pizza were not on their roster the first 3 weeks, and those are 2 of their best players. And TIW has also had just a murderer's row schedule so far. They've already played Future Crew, AC, and DA.
Yeah, I'm not sure about TIW. I mean, like I remember during the match, they were actually like totally head to head for what was it, like the first 6 minutes or so, or 7 minutes?
Yeah,
Like it was just neck
they
and
almost
neck.
capped the base.
Yeah, they almost capped the base, which would have put them ahead in the first round, even if like things continued the way they did. But yeah, it was just I don't know. I feel like the sniping was a big part of it, actually. Just because I feel like DA would get set up on the point and they would just have no way to get them off. Whereas DA would be attacking the point on the other hand, and they'd have Ye to do that, just get that key pick, and they'd have Vonic to get that, flank. Whereas I don't know, just TIW just they ended up just beating their heads in the wall and just giving more and more lead.
Yeah, I think
One of the things we commented on during the match is this base, especially compared to all the other bases, has the potential to really spiral out of control. In terms of the score, in terms of one team getting frustrated because they can't get in, and it can lead to a huge disparity in the scores.
Rambo syndrome.
Angry Rambo.
Angry Rambo.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah, I think it's really easy, and like even as we're watching, I'm kind of fast forwarding through this clip because it will be here forever. But at the beginning, Recursion, to be honest, there was a moment where I thought, "Holy crap! Like AC's about to explode." But I think it says a lot for just how I think Recursion has approached it, where they were very patient and they just kept plugging away, right? Because I think it was a call by you or Shock this in the first half. We were like, "Well, why didn't?" Or whoever was casting, I forget. I think it was Tab actually, where he was like, "Why didn't they push the point?" And when you look at that, it's like it looks like almost like it was part of their plan. They're saying, "Let's give it to AC, work slowly, and work back." Like how I mean, I don't know what kind of like mentality that kind of takes. As we're winding down, there's like 50 seconds left, and the match is super close, 2 kills apart, just to be patient with each other. Like, do you feel that, or like over time, you're talking about rosters that I don't know, like the synergy between teams is going to be pretty insane, and people will stick to their same 12, or do you think there's going to be room for variation and stuff like that?
I mean, I think teams are starting to kind of figure out who their ideal A team of 6 is. The issue with that, though, is that due to real life, people can't always make the matches. And so you have to have people that may not be on the A team ready to fill in and just without missing a beat.
Yeah, that came up during the especially during the DA versus AC match where you had, in my opinion, like the 2 best players on the AC roster just not able to play that week. Which is Visigoto and Lex.
It's true, but I mean, like I said, you can't make excuses. You have to roll with what you got.
No, but I kind of like that though, because it kind of separates PS2 a little bit from, you could argue, it's a pro and a con, because other team sports or other esports, it's always the same 5, right? The same 6. But in PlanetSide 2, it's a bit more dynamic. But let's talk about, there's 11 seconds left. I paused it here. So Recursion's down 2 kills. And I think it was Maxi and Lex that kind of saved the day. Like, I don't know, were you on comms at the time, Dis, or?
I was not. One of our players recorded it on Shadowplay and uploaded.
Oh,
So we
okay.
could all just kind of see and hear how it all went down the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I kind of want.
Imagine what Lex was saying. 'Cause he was, I mean, that was Lex at the end there. You saw just falling down, just chugging medkits.
Yeah, we're about to see that.
If they had gotten that kill, it would have been a tie.
You would be surprised how calm he was. He just said, "Okay, I made it.
Yeah,
Eh.
and I think that was the real moment.
Yeah, and I think when people, especially I think when PAL was kind of starting, or even Comclash, people talk about how PS2 doesn't have those clutch moments. I mean, and if anything, I mean, we've seen a lot already in Farmers, right, with different teams, but I don't think there's any more clear indication than this one. And I'm going to hit it play. Do any of you guys want to talk us through what's here, or what you thought was going on in the minds of the players?
Well, the
Let's
last
spit
10
the
seconds,
delay.
actually, there's no more kills. Everything happened kind of between, I'd say, the 25 and the 11.
Oh, I missed Alexi, didn't I? Lexi's move. Let me see if I can catch
Yeah,
it.
he already fell down at this point. Jumped down, I guess.
Okay, here we go. I rewinded it.
Yeah, that's the part you're gonna wind back to.
Yeah, here we go. This is, I think, because Maxi comes out, puts pressure on the corner, right, and then Lex just charges. I think is what happens.
They worked in tandem. There was also a situation sometime before that where Maxi came out, got hit by a rocket, had to run back in.
There it is, yeah. And look at the Steppen firing like crazy. You can almost feel his frustration that Lex won't die. Yeah, you could tell he was frustrated.
Okay, so yeah, Maxi ran in, and then Lex came charging around the corner. I know I'm a little bit behind the feed that we're seeing here, but he jumped over the edge, chugged medkits, Steppen tried to get him with a commissioner and missed.
Yeah, I think he emptied clips from both his weapons, like just trying to get Lex.
And the final kill you see there was Maxi on Steppen. Steppen trying to run around the corner.
I think it speaks a lot for how Farmers is. You know, I've been trying to think of like a real sport analogy or similarity, and the sport that comes to mind first is soccer because it's so dynamic, right? Like even within your positions in soccer, you always change. Like your midfield can go forward and back, and a lot of it is like timings, you know, for crosses and then rotating and stuff. And a lot of that happens in Farmers, where there's like a lot of things that happen, like Steppen getting exposed right there and just getting picked off real easy. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's super, super important because I mean that essentially wins in the match, right?
Oh, it is. We could also, we could replay that final minute. Put everyone from both teams in their positions, 1 minute left, and say go, and it would we could do it 100 times, and that would play out 100 different ways. I mean, if Steppen had landed one of those commiss shots on Lex, he probably would have gotten him, and that would have been the end of it. I mean, that's how close it was.
Would have been a tie at that point, right?
Well, I think they would have even won because Steffen dies, right? And that's what gives the lead up.
Yep. If Steffen had gotten Lex,
if he'd gotten the kill, he might have gotten away too.
Yeah, if he'd gotten the kill and then just stayed put, then yeah, Recursion would have won. If he'd gotten the kill and run and died to Maxi, then yeah, it would have been a tie.
Yeah, I really love that that's happening. I wish there was a way we could almost kind of capture it and say maybe somebody do like a montage or something of like just clutch moments in Farmers. But I've swapped it up to I think the match that you were excited about this is the Dread and TXR match. Like go. Oh yeah, go ahead. Actually, I was going to ask you what you thought of this match before it started.
I don't know a whole lot about the two teams. I know, Talron, Rain. I just knew the importance for both teams. That in terms of trying to lock up one of the final playoff spots. I mean, as I said, I think whoever wins this match will get the final playoff spot.
See, when I heard about this match, I had all my skins down on TXR personally.
Yeah, I would agree.
Viewed their team as being more rounded. Whereas Dread to me just seemed reliant on Rainfear. Just being a clutch player.
As we've seen in basketball and other sports, though, I was just going to say, sometimes the team with just the best player can put on such a dominating performance that they can still win.
Right, the best player can win championships.
They're like some other people that really stepped it up that game.
Yeah, they did. D-Nuts, 46-2.
I actually had my money on Dread before the match started.
That's just the PS bias in you.
Probably.
Why would you say that, Dopey? Can you explain that?
Well, for the first matches I saw them play in, I think we actually played Dread in the first one we had, and I thought that their performance was pretty good, just based on they threw their team together essentially and went head-to-head against us.
Yeah, Dread was kind of a late entry into the whole thing.
Yeah, I think the thing with Dread, though...
I played against TXR as well. I've never really played against Dread, but we played against TXR and PAL before, and I guess I was just impressed by Dread's performance.
Yeah, the thing with Dread is I think I casted a few of their scrims or I streamed it, and you could tell that they were very, very methodical in their approach to stuff. Like they worked really well in numbers. And I know that's not really good in Farmers, but it's one of those things where like I knew that once they caught on to what was going on, or maybe what your ACs or Future Crews or Recursions were doing, that they would improve a lot. Like they have a lot of room for improvement because you could tell they were a bit more methodical than the other teams. Where TXR, like I kind of agree with Scourge. I thought that just because of like their top guys that they could win the match, but it's like that one guy, right? The wild card Rain that just like just said, a good player or your all-star can win a championship essentially or win a match.
See, that was kind of the stylistic difference I was talking about when we were talking about this earlier. Is I felt like while I was watching the match that it just felt like TXR was just going for the 1v1s. It was going for the picks, and they were outperforming. I mean, TKs aside, they would have been way up if it hadn't been for the string of TKs right at the start. But yeah, I just felt like when it came to TXR being set up in the building and having both the balconies, I felt like Dread just was way better at kicking it in and just getting in there. Whereas and on the other hand, TXR was just not able to get inside when Dread was holding the inside, and that just comes down to their team just being methodical, just having all the spots picked out, and everyone organized where they should be.
So we're also seeing here how close TXR almost put this away in the second half. I think they were 30 seconds away from capping, and they already had a 40-point lead, and that would have been it. And Dread made a really good push to stop the point with 20-30 seconds left, and from this point on, they completely took over the rest of the match.
Yeah, I think maybe a minute or so is when Dread just starts to come back, and they come back. And as a team, I don't think I think if the teams each had like their own little scoreboard, like you would see maybe some more kind of desperation plays, where Taron could say, or whatever the team leader is, holy crap, they're coming back, we got to do something. Like how much do you think it plays into effect when you guys can't see the score? You're kind of more or less guessing. Like how do you guys even play like without the score?
I think most people have the stream up on a second monitor just
Oh,
so they
okay.
can see the score.
I think it's not even really that. It's kind of like you can kind of feel it. You can feel the momentum of the game. You can feel it slipping away. And that does start to affect people's decisions. That's where you start to get that angry Rambos and such going on.
Well, how do you keep that in check?
It
Or
does.
can you even keep that in check?
That's where you need a strong voice on your team. When everyone starts just scattering and running out, you need someone to say, hey, everyone calm down, group
Papa
up.
Dis.
That's something I felt like
The tyrants of the outfit lay down the law.
I felt like Dread
Hold
did
on,
that
wait.
really well.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they could have lost their cool so easily there. Down, about to lose the base. And they just recollected themselves, and like I said, just completely took over.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference. I think even Dread's last match was, I think, against Recursion, where Recursion was really kind of like they had the strict control point, or they had that double stack. I forget what base that was, Pill Canyon, and they were pretty just sitting on their haunches, but Dread just kept coming, and you could tell that it takes a lot from a team, right? Where how Scourge was saying, you could kind of feel when it's out, when you've lost control, but to have that feeling and say, okay, we're probably losing by a lot, but let's keep going. It takes a lot of a strong mentality, I think, especially from your leader or your team to keep doing that, and it really worked in Dread's favor this time because they didn't give up.
And persistence pays off. I mean, you still, like, if a match is completely lost, like, it's over. You don't want to blindly rush and give up too many points because of the way the playoff seeding works.
Right. What do you think about this move by TXR? I want to rewind it a bit. I know you guys are a little behind. It seemed really just like kind of how Scourge was saying, kind of like the timings and stuff wasn't right here because they essentially get sandwiched on the point, and that's when Dread actually catches up or takes the lead. Here, I rewind it in a second.
Well, what we're seeing here, I mean, TXR came in and tried to make a last-second save. They almost got it, but then they got wiped. I mean, they stopped that hack with 2 or 3 seconds left, but they just couldn't hold it.
See, this is something I've started to think, especially this week, is that teams are way too focused on capturing the point. And this was actually something like I had a thought to myself that Recursion would have won their match against AC if they had not, at the end of the first round, gotten crazy about trying to get that base cap. And if they had been slower and not just like feeding into the point one at a time, just kill trading over and over again,
Just tunnel visioned in.
yeah, and that's the thing is like I feel like that's happened in basically every game that was played this week at some point.
Well,
Was just-
AC See, AC, we made a mistake in the second half where when they were about to cap, we blindly threw ourselves at the point trying to stop it.
Yes.
And we got wiped a couple times, and we lost a lot of points doing that, and we weren't able to stop it.
So how do you
That's the thing,
balance that?
It seems like you just have to accept it and just play smart, play slow.
I mean, yeah, you have to realize, okay, look, there's only 2 of us. There's 6 of them in the building. We can't just run in 2 of us and get cut down because that's just giving away points. When AC was able to stop the recursion hack in the first half with 3 seconds left or whatever it was, we did that because we had a big complement of players up there. We weren't running in randomly. We had a large group going at the same time.
You ever seen Rain here? Like, dude, I took like what 2-3 guys out. That's insane. When you can get that much from just one player.
This is when he really starts to harass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His point score, like, I think almost essentially doubles in like the last few minutes.
And you could just tell everyone coming up from TXR is just focused solely on
frustration.
Yeah, you can see the frustration. What do you guys do in that scenario? Say, Dopey, you're the TXR lead right here. What would you do with your guys? Like, what would you tell them?
I would regroup at the bottom, go up all at once. If he peeks his head over, you got 6 guys shooting at him. He's probably not going to make it. Then push in. It seemed like they were just going up one at a time, really.
Yeah, and they weren't using the staircase enough. Like, they just kept using the lift over and over again, even though it's so easy to get picked off on that lift.
Yeah, Angry Rambo there. I think in full effect.
But again, they were desperate to try to get the point cap back at that point too. Probably felt they were behind.
Yeah, I mean, if they had somebody on their team looking at the scoreboard, they probably realized, okay, 4 minutes left and we were down 30, 35 points. Like, we're going to have to try to get a quick cap on this. But they just weren't organized. Now they did it, as you see, just coming up one at a time.
Yeah, but even so, I think we even talked about it a few weeks ago. We were saying that even if you're down like 20, 30 points, that's really essentially only 2 wipes, right? 2 wiping out the enemy team twice. I mean, you're back in the game. That's it.
Yeah, that's also, depending on how feasible you think that is, that's more base dependent. I would say that's a lot harder to do on this base than it might be on some of the other ones.
Yeah, the biggest issue with that on this base is that the team on the inside just has a gigantic advantage if they're well organized on both balconies in the middle with a couple guys. Just it's like you can cover every angle.
I mean, you can get a couple kills, but to do that, you have to expose yourself, and you're going to lose a couple bodies yourself in the process.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to just having like that really star light assault or that really star sniper. Is like that's just where you notice them. I think is when it comes to like when you need to get a pick, so that it's like you go into the room and it's a 5v6 as opposed to 6v6.
Yeah, that's a massive
you just have
difference.
To weaken that armor at some point. Can't really push in 6 against 6 fortified people.
Yeah, and that's where you see players like Rainfear come in and from DA this week.
How big of a deal do you think the changes to like conks and stuff had a role in these matches? Because this is actually the Thursday's match. Like, do you think it affected the teams at all?
I don't think conks have been that big of a deal because I think most heavies are running clear vision.
Yeah.
I think the AV nade change is definitely going to have a difference, reducing the explosive radius to infantry.
It's very map dependent too, as well. Like, remember that was the thing that came up during our matches on. I'm trying to remember the base.
Yeah, the one with the point on the bottom
so,
in the big stair.
And that just the way that was a map that was very grenade heavy. Whereas then you get to like Pale Canyon and it's like there's basically no use for grenades because the map is just so wide and spread out.
I mean, you're probably going to see people that were running AV nades switch to just regular frag grenades in bases like Gana and Southern Crossing.
Especially now that we've seen that Maxes have kind of fallen out of the farmers meta.
Let's talk about maps for a second, and then I'm gonna swap to the other match. But what do you guys think about the map so far?
Scourge.
They're all right. We haven't played them all yet, right?
Actually, we have now.
Oh, I suppose we have.
You've made
yeah.
a full cycle.
We're starting over back at Wookuk shipping next week.
Yeah. I think for the most part the maps are pretty balanced each side, which is good. And it's kind of neat that the maps are like they actually do all play very different. Like there's totally different strats for each map. I think. Like I can't really think of two maps that are really like the same.
Yeah, and we've seen teams play very different styles even on the same maps.
So, what do you guys think? I know we talk about I think Scritch had a good point too, where you just kind of focus on what's going on right now. Make sure that everything is solid, and I kind of agree with that, right? I mean, we've kind of seen from SOE, you don't want to. Well, I don't know, I don't want to get into that, but you don't want to kind of stretch yourself thin. But what do you guys think the future holds for farmers, or for events like this?
I would say I think we're off to a really good start with farmers. Viewership has increased. People are becoming more aware of it.
Yeah, no, I would like to point out that farmers is like not very marketed at all. It's like
no, it's not.
Compared to some post on Reddit before matches. Our marketing department needs to step it up.
Yeah, I mean, it literally was started as just like, hey, we're gonna do this. We're just gonna have some fun, and you can watch or don't. It's not been like, the farmers thing we haven't been like going around trying to like sell to people like, oh my god, you gotta watch. And
but I think
focus has been the event and the players really, so
yeah.
It kind of makes sense.
I think though, if you really wanted to sell it, I mean, there's enough really really good moments so far that you could, if you wanted to. Like in Dota, how before a match they kind of they have those like trailers or preview vids where they're like, oh, the plays, the clutch moments. I think Farmers has so many of those right now that you could put together, a solid 30-second clip easy, or even a minute of just plays and really clutch, moments. And I think it's really going in a good place, like kind of how you guys have said.
The thing I would like to emphasize most to people on it is how much fun it is to play in. Playing on live server and getting that last second resecure with hundreds of people and explosions, that's fun and all, but this is so much more intense. I mean, every single person I've spoken to on every team has just loved every second of these competitions.
Yeah, it's been a blast. It'd be cool to see the event expanded and maybe get some more publicity from SOE, some more support. But at the same time, it's like we've all put the cart before the horse in too many competitive events, and this time it's just we're gonna have an event. It's gonna be awesome, and maybe SOE will notice and be like, oh well, this is all the things we did wrong last year. This is what we'll do for SOE Live 2015.
Yeah, that could be like a whole another hour conversation because Malone isn't there anymore, and he was the one that kind of pushed it for the format at SOE Live this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and a lot of that was just kind of like serendipitous, right? And it was like because at the same time, Malone did kind of throw the rule set together like at the last minute, and it just
kind of worked.
Turned out to work.
Turned out to work very well. I know at the beginning some people were worried, oh, there's going to be nothing but maxes and shotguns. I mean, we have seen very little of that. It's been mostly just straight up IVI play. Well, and rockets.
Do you want to explain what that means for people who don't know what IVI means? Just real quick.
Just the infantry weapons. LMGs, SMGs, carbines, assault rifles.
And shotguns.
Of course. And,
So I know we were talking earlier about what it takes, kind of the teams and the different styles. And I think I know I'm talking about Recursion maybe a little too much, but they were the one team that I thought would be good, but I didn't think they would be that good. Like, do you think there's maybe some potential for other teams, even teams that can evolve right now, like your TIWs and TXRs and Dreads, to really, really improve, to push, like a top 4, top 5 kind of neck and neck race? Like, or how would you guys describe the way it looks now?
Are you talking about teams that are in it or teams that could potentially
Both,
be in the
both.
Potential
future?
teams.
Yeah, just any potential team.
I mean, if you look at there are a lot of outfits out there. There's a lot of large outfits out there. And at the end of the day, when you're just getting a 6v6, there's outfits that people jokingly call Zerg fits that could easily field a very solid 6-man team in a competition like this.
Yeah, and I think we've seen how huge just single people on a team can be. Like, obviously, you need like a good 6 and everything, but just like for example, like Therum was not really considered was not really like a OO member until all this started, and he's been like a humongous asset to their team. So just like a single roster change could just be huge, and just suddenly next season your team is just gonna do much better.
Well, you said Ethereum is a huge asset. So let's I kind of don't like these lists, like the best of lists, but screw it, we're all here, so let's just throw it out there. Who would you guys say are the top 3 players so far in all of Farmers? Let's start with Dopey.
I've actually fought against Therum on test server, so I'm gonna put him on there. He's a pain in the ass to fight against. I've got against Maxi multiple times as well. He's absolutely terrible to fight against. Wouldn't want to do that again. And that's just through scrims and stuff like that. And I actually want to put a light assault on there, but I really haven't decided. I really like Murda. I think he's doing great so far. I think that Rain is doing amazing as well. And you've also got, who else have we got on there?
Monic.
I think I'm just going to go with Murder up there for now.
I think you went a little over 3 there.
No, that's fine.
Go Murda for 1, for LA's obviously, Maxi, and I'm going to go with Therum.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in any order. I would just say your top 3 guys. How about you, Dis?
So far, okay, I'm going to say Rain because of his performance last night. That was so dominating in the most important match so far. I will go with Therum because the way he has really just stepped it up and been so big for Recursion. And I guess I won't be a homer. I'm going to leave everyone from AC off the list. I'll go with Yeah for DA because he, not just his sniping ability, the way he has really controlled the sensor game for DA has been huge. If you can see where the bad guys are and they don't know where you are, that makes it a lot easier.
Okay, how about you, Scourge?
See, I was gonna pick Yeah too, actually, but man, I feel like I could be different somehow. But yeah, I mean, I was gonna pick Yeah for reasons. Because it's like the thing is like having these good heavies is great and all, but at the same time, you can only really afford to have one infill on your team, right? In your 6-man lineup during the match, and just that means there's just all the more pressure on that guy to be getting those EMPs off, denying their sensor stick, getting your sensor down, and getting these key picks. Like, you got so many picks that were just crucial. Like, I'm even like into the match, like I think it was like 10 or 20 seconds into the match, it got just a kill just immediately.
Yeah, I would almost argue that the infill probably has to worry about positioning more than anybody else because he is like a high risk, high reward role. Where heavies have a little bit of a buffer and usually heavies are together, and that infill's kind of swinging, anywhere he needs to be, and like he's getting those picks because he's picking the right position, right? You could say mostly just knowing where to be, maybe a little bit of luck.
Yeah. On the other hand, though, I do feel like sometimes it is the case that that a heavy player is just kind of like an anchor of a team. And I feel like in all the matches I've watched of EC matches, I feel like Vizzy's been kind of an anchor. Just, you know, even when he's not like scoring the most, he's just in the right place, holding stuff down. And you know, Lex has two, so it's kind of it's hard for me to say pick a favorite there.
We do have to give a shout out to the most improved player, Wolfhausen.
Yes, Wolfhausen.
Is he finally getting kills?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah, he got a couple kills. Wolfhausen actually got more kills on Murda than Murda got on him.
Ah, dominated.
Oh yeah.
So that was the one counter to his reign of terror.
All right, let's go into predictions. I'll avoid my three. Actually, no. You know what? I would agree with you guys from what I've seen, and it's actually I'm saying this mostly because of what Maxi said about Ethereum, but I would say Ethereum for sure, and then I would pick Vizzy like Scourge said just for his presence because it means a lot. It's huge, right? And then I would pick Rain Fear, you know, because I mean, just to be able to do what he does, you know, he's kind of more or less like playing like a win position, I guess. You know, just kind of being out there and super aggressive. I think it's been really impressive. One second. So let's go into predictions. Hopefully this shows up right. Let's see. So next week for Tuesday, November 4th, you have AC versus TXR. What do you think about that match, Dopey? Like who are you calling? I mean, obviously you're AC, but what do you think about that match?
Well, like I said, we've played TXR and PAL before, so I think we're gonna win that one. But I think it'll be a good show, though. That's for sure.
How about you, Dis?
Well, of course I have to go with AC.
I mean,
TXR,
yeah, I was about to ask, do you think that TXR is improving? Because they kind of seem like they're in this kind of like void for some reason. You know, like they're neither improving or really getting worse, but they're kind of stagnant for whatever reason. Like, why would you think that is?
I think that's hard to qualify in this. I think every team improves every week, just from the experience of being in these matches.
How about you, Scourge?
So
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you know what? I'm done. Go on, Scourge.
Yeah, I'm not sure what advice to give TXR. I do kind of feel like every team is definitely improving. The meta's moving along, and you know, but at the same time, I do agree that TXR is like not stepping it up as much as they could be. It's hard to say exactly the reason for that, but yeah, I guess they have had some roster changes, so yeah, they still gotta kind of get their team, just everyone on the same page, and just practice. I don't know.
Well, let's go to obviously the highlight of that day. This is kind of as like somebody said in chat, the SW Live rematch, DA versus Future Crew. Let's start with you, Scrooge. What do you think about this matchup?
Am I allowed to speak to this one?
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah, you must.
Well, I mean, I think we can take it, but you know, it'll be interesting. I think because both of our teams have very different strengths. I think, like you know, it's like I think both of our teams have the two best Lightosoul players, and the you know, obviously Vonik and it's Murda, but at the same time, like if you watch both of them stream, it's like a totally different experience. Like just it's like they're playing different games even.
Yeah, it is.
Different play styles. So you know, it'll be interesting just kind of seeing. And then on the other hand, you've got you know, for the sniper is, you know, amazing sniper, and whereas we got like, you know, 2 and 3.
Who's more SMG?
Like, you know, who's an amazing SMG player, right? So there's just a lot of stylistic differences, I think, and yeah, it'll be hard to call it.
Well, what do you think about now? We're kind of going back to the the first map, Will Cook Shipping Dock. Do you think that's going to play out differently now that teams have more experience, like with the format and the map, or because kind of like in the prior weeks or when the all teams played on this, it was kind of like push the H building and then be aggressive on the outer buildings towards the center. Do you think that's kind of play out the same, or what do you think is going to happen?
I think,
I,
just real quick, I think the fights there just kind of, they tend to gravitate towards the outside because everything that happens inside, underground at the point is just quick and decisive and it's over.
Right.
And you don't want to sit in there and let people start chunking nades. You want to push out. So I think a lot of the fighting you're going to see is going to be similar to what we saw in week 1.
although on the other hand, both concussion nades are and AP nades are a little nerfed.
This is true.
That was the biggest deterrent back in the day to everyone just piling the point was that that's a very easy to spam out point with grenades, just saturated with AV nades and just,
God, what is Tav going to do?
Yeah, I was about to say Tavin is grenade bandolier.
yeah.
Or even with the 3 second, I mean, you could potentially, kind of pre-aim a conch, right? Bounce it around a room now, or bounce it around a doorway now to kind of deeper in. But you also got to count on that 3 seconds. So, maybe the timing's going to be a bit off. Maybe people won't be used to the 3 seconds. I mean, these are really good players, so I'm sure everybody will adjust super quick. But it still is different from what it was before.
It is, but like I said, most people are now running clear vision.
Right.
That was a lesson quickly learned.
So, what do you think about this matchup, DA versus Future Crew?
Well, since Scourge wouldn't make a prediction, just for the sake of representing East Coast, I'm gonna say DA by 1 point.
Oh.
Oh, jeez.
Gotta stick with the East Coast, man.
I think it'll be interesting to see what rosters these teams bring, right? Because that roster when DA beat you guys, I didn't think that DA team would beat you guys. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of like the A team wasn't here, so they had to kind of fill in. But that team performed really well.
Well, you had the same thing going on with the AC team. The 2 best heavies not making it.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, there's no question DA thoroughly outplayed us that game. Rosters aside.
All right, so what do you think, Dopey, about this matchup?
So Dis went with DA. I'm going to go with Future Crew by 1 point.
Oh, wow.
Scourge, why don't you just call a tie?
No,
about that?
no, wait a second. So if it's 1 point, that means that it has to be a rocket primary kill, right?
That
decides the match.
Rocket primary kill, and I'm going to be looking for Tav to accomplish this.
Ah, very specific. This is like Babe Ruth pointing to right field or something.
And who's he going to rocket primary?
Well, I'm hoping Ender's there for it, and I'm hoping it's inside like one of the healing grenade auras as well, because I think that would be like the perfect storm.
At 300 or something.
Yes, it will be the ultimate showdown.
The only reason it will get to that point is because Stuke is going to accidentally TK Vert with his jackhammer.
Exactly.
I was going to say, like, Ender will throw a heal grenade on a corner, and he'll say, Giggly, Giggly, you're fine, go to the heal grenade, and that's when Tav will rocket primary Giggly in the face.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Yes.
Although something I would like to point out, though, is EA does kind of, in my opinion, have the advantage in that they won the coin toss, and they got to pick NC. Which I personally consider the stronger, especially map.
Let's go to Reddit and talk about how nobody wants to be TR.
Let's do faction balance discussion next.
Yeah, you guys, actually, that's something I don't think has been discussed openly, the factions. Like, why do you guys think TR, I mean, outside of the actual outfits, do you think TR is underperforming in a 6v6?
I think at the distances that most of the 1v1 encounters happen, personally, we've talked about this, I think AC, if we could choose, we would choose NC over VS or TR.
Is it because of the Cyclone?
A lot of these. Cyclone has something to do with it.
Cyclone is very nice.
But
I would personally still pick VS as Orion Master Ace, but yeah, NC is like unquestionably above TR. At least to most of the teams.
Just to stop this whole TR's underpowered thing, there's I know a lot of people from AC that absolutely love TR weapons. It's just at the ranges that most of these 1v1s happen.
I feel like TR is kind of the middle ground. VS and C, they have good close range, NC maybe a little bit better long range, but TR is kind of right in the middle of both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I mean they have like what, the MSWR, the Carve, the TR medic weapons, which kind of don't count, right? Because nobody plays medic, so it all really comes down to heavies and infills. But
Well,
even
that's just the thing. If there was a lot of medic play, you might see people play TR more.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
TR has great medic weapons.
yeah, their TR
See, I think-
assault rifles are amazing.
Tier is a lot more properly balanced when you're talking about live server play. Is kind of the. I mean, just the whole like the magazine advantage and such doesn't come into play very much in this format as opposed to live server where it's gigantic when there's like 3 dudes coming around the corner once and you can get
Oh,
all
yeah.
of them.
Well, since we're talking about TR, you got 56 versus Dread. Like, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what teams chose what. But what do you guys think about that matchup? Start with
Dread should take it.
Yeah, Dread's gonna be feeling good about themselves. They're gonna have a lot of confidence, and they know that they need to keep winning if they want to get that playoff spot. So I have to go with Dread.
And they've got the momentum behind them.
yeah, 56 almost kind of needs a matchup or a match like how kind of Dread did this week to kind of push them forward. I think, but they haven't had it yet. And like you guys have said, I think Dread's riding the waves as well. So let's move on versus TIW versus OO. I think, is this the first time that NC has faced NC?
It is.
Yeah.
I think so.
So it should be interesting because obviously we're not going to see NC. But what do you guys think as far as this goes? TIW versus OO. Start with Dopey.
Well, if Therum doesn't crash and can make it to the entire match, I would go with Recursion.
I'm gonna
Yep.
continue to show my East Coast bias. I'm gonna call TIW in an upset.
Well, that's the thing is like at this point we're calling it an upset, and if you'd asked people before this
Yeah.
these matches, people would have said the opposite, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would have.
I still think TIW. I think last week was the first time we saw their real roster they want to roll with, and I think they're still kind of working together and figuring things out.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Either you put more time on Jaeger, or you watch matches. You learn from other people. Just got to get better somehow. There's, like you said, there's a lot of things that happen. Right, it's just not mechanical skill. It's teamwork, communication. Your timings and stuff like that. It's all important. I'd actually almost be curious to. I wish there was a way where you could like maybe a list of what each team does to practice. I know it would never happen, just to see what kind of how each team approaches. Getting ready for this stuff. I think that would be really, really interesting.
I think that's probably the biggest strength Recursion has is honestly, in my opinion, I think they're the team that does the best at preparing for matches.
Yeah,
Like
I think.
just of all the
I want to
strats
exactly.
and so forth.
And I think it's mostly. I don't know. I might be wrong. But I think it's mostly Cell who's doing it because I think he said last time that he was the team captain. He's not actually on the roster, but I think he's the one that's preparing him the most. And from what I know of Cell, it sounds kind of like him. But you could tell, I mean, just the way they were playing, I think especially when they played against you guys, Scourge, that the way they were timing the rockets and the way they were timing the pushes, that you could tell that they've put a lot of work into it. It's not, I mean, it's something that develops over time on live, but like you guys said, in a format like this, it's a whole different ballgame to try and get those, those timings down like that.
Yeah, just having like all those spots identified and that's just going to come up on the map. Like, say if we were talking like Pale Canyon, I don't think Recursion would be as strong, but on Wilcook shipping, it's no chance. Like, this is a map that will reward a team that is organized and is just on the point.
That's not updated, kid.
So what's that?
Standings page isn't updated yet. Working on it right now, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was going to talk about what do you guys think? Who do you think is going to take that coveted 6th spot? I know Dish said that whoever won between TXR and Dread was going to move forward. And like I said, yeah, Dread's missing their win from here. But who do you guys think is going to take that 6th spot?
I'm still gonna go
Should
with
be
Dread
Dread,
on
right?
that.
I mean, it's to the point that if Dread didn't get it, I think it would be considered an upset, wouldn't it?
Right, because of the schedule that TXR has.
Yeah, TXR is just. I'm sorry, guys, but you just gotta couple weeks of hell ahead of you.
They could potentially take TIW. I would say that the teams that are the most even, maybe outside of kind of like AC and Recursion, are TXR and TIW. Like if you would say like the top 4 teams, and then like the 2, like 5th and 6th, out of the 5th and 6th teams that are the most even, I would say TXR and TIW. With the top 4 all pretty close, but you know, it's kind of like, I mean, there's always going to be like a good, better, best, right? So I'll take out of the better teams, you know, between Dread, TXR, and TIW. I think TXR and TIW are kind of similar in their playstyles, where Dread's a little more, you know, put well together. I guess if that makes sense with the way they fight their matches, where TXR and TIW are a bit both, you know, a little loose.
And that's
Well,
an
see,
odd
that's-
thing to see from TIW because back in the PAL days, that was one of their strengths, is they were so organized and so coordinated in those matches.
Yeah, it's kind of like I would still rate their you know, strategy and organization above TXR, but yeah, that was traditionally considered a strength of them. But you know, that I just felt like during the DA match they were just being totally outstrated. It just felt like, you know, DA was the team that was, you know, just on the ball and had a plan.
Yeah, and then just, you know, being demoralized is huge too. I think we've seen it in a lot of games.
Yeah, it is easy to get rattled in some of these matches, especially at Fall Bridge.
All right, so I think that closes it out. I mean, it's pretty clear cut. I think next week the only match I think that's going to be really tight is DA versus Future Crew. But besides that, do you guys have anything else to add?
I would add, even though that's the match everyone's going to tune in for, you should watch all of them anyways, because you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 weeks have been, you know, full of surprises.
Anything can happen in these matches.
Yeah, and I think that's, like we talked about earlier, that's, I think, the great thing about not always having a stable roster is that you really don't know who's going to do what or pull out. I mean, you have your guys that are performing pretty consistently, and then you have maybe just a couple roster changes like Recursion did, you know, on Tuesday that could really change things. So I think it's really interesting to see what's going to happen. What do you think, Dopey?
Say Therum can't show up for the TIW match.
Right, exactly.
I think it'd be insanely close at that point.
Because I think, especially when you have a guy like Therum who plays a similar role to like what Vonic was doing, right, in Rain and Murda, like, it's kind of like, I don't know what you would call it, like a flex, but those guys have to be so good that they can be out there on their own and know that when they're safe and when they're not safe, right?
They can be on point at that point. If you
right.
lose that, then.
And then we saw what happened with AC where they lost Visi and Lexi, how much even just 2 guys can change your entire dynamic. So I think like it could be like, say his computer doesn't work, and you know, you never know what's going to happen, right? There is no pause button in this. You have to keep going.
Yeah, or a patch happens, as we've seen.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Amazing patch.
All right, so let's close it out. Scourge, last final comments? I know you started.
Cheer for us? I don't know. Please.
What's in it for me?
Hmm.
We'll talk about that later.
Well, Scourge does have that sweet SOE money, PS2 money.
Ooh.
Smed books.
All right, Dis, last thoughts or final thoughts?
No, just keep tuning into this. It is just getting better and better week to week. The teams are getting better. Just stick with it, and let's see what the future is going to hold here.
Dopey, any final thoughts? Are you surprised that Das Anfall is 4-0? Or that DA is 4-0?
Am I? I mean, I was hoping we'd beat them. You know, fingers crossed. But no, I'm not really surprised by that. Somebody had to be 4-0.
Can they go undefeated though? That is the question.
It's like, obviously it's not going to matter. Like, you get in the playoffs anyways, even if you're not 4-0.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there is a bit of, you know, kind of pride.
Bragging rights behind that.
Oh, huge bragging rights.
It's like we're undefeated, you know.
Because the week after playing Future Crew, DA plays Recursion.
That'll be a really good one too. All right, I guess
This is just the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm kidRiot, and with me was Scourge, Dis, and Dopey. And like Scourge said, I mean, even if you're not rooting for Future Crew, root for somebody. You know, you have really good teams with a lot of good players, a lot of good people. You know, I've met a lot of these guys. You know, we've all kind of hung out at SW Live, and when you support this, you support PlanetSide too, essentially. So do it. You know, if anything, show up on the stream, and you know, just whatever you want to do, just show up and talk about it. Watch the VODs. You know, just support the community, because this is all done by the community. You know, some of these guys have been really involved. Like Dopey here has done the website, so it's all stuff that we've done because there's a passion for it, right? There's a desire for it, and if people don't support that, then it's not going to go anywhere. You know, and you just really want these things to kind of, you know, gain some traction and get moving. So really, that's I'm kidRiot. That's it for me and Attacking Auraxis. Thanks to the guys that showed up, and tune in. I think later today, I think Zoran's streaming. But besides that, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. on the PS2 Farmers Twitch channel, it's going to be some good matches. So be sure to tune in. If not Tuesday, on Thursday. Take it easy. I'm out.